I have current clients that are just so addicted to any and every substance that they can get their hands on that it's heartbreaking, and it really gives pause to the overarching ethical decision or dilemma of, are we helping this person or are we just prolonging their agony?
It's The Journey with drug and alcohol attorney Mark G. Astor.
Welcome to The Journey with Mark Astor. I'm your host, Mark Astor. I've spent a lot of years sitting across the table from people during some of the most challenging moments of their lives. As an attorney, an advocate, and as someone who understands that the road isn't always straight. What I've learned is that success, recovery, and growth rarely look the way we expect them to. There are detours, hard conversations, and moments that change everything. On this podcast, I talk with people who are willing to be honest about their journey, what worked, what didn't, and what they wish they knew sooner. And I'm really excited to be joined by a fellow lawyer, Mike Mackniak, who, in addition to practicing law for many years, so that means he's not as old as me, but close to it, he works in the behavioral health space. He has this amazing organization called Guardian Ad Litem Services, and he's helping people much like we are, but from a very different perspective. So the work that we do and the work that he does really complements each other. So I am super excited to meet with him because I certainly haven't met an attorney that does what you do, Mike. And I don't know if I've met an attorney who frankly understands the work that we both do. So I'm very grateful that you have joined us and thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm happy to be asked. I really appreciate the opportunity. And you're right, there's not a lot of us. We're a dying breed, that or we're the beginning of a new breed of lawyers who will be alerted to the issues that we face in the trenches every single day, right?
Yeah, and our own profession is not immune to some of the issues that we see. And so I'm going to talk to you about that in a little bit too. But let me go back in time. Tell us about like where did you go to law school? What arena did you practice in? Tell me about that.
I started at the University of Bridgeport. That was my first year. Second year, it became Bridgeport School of Law. Third year, it became Bridgeport School of Law at Quinnipiac College. So I think my degree is actually from Quinnipiac Law School, right? It was the tough time when the school was getting bought out and get closed down, and it was just a weird time to be anywhere in school, especially law school. But so that's what happened there. I graduated in 1994.
Okay, same year as me.
I, like everybody, took the bar and went to Europe for a few weeks and backpacked around and then pretty much came back and bartended.
Okay.
And then I kind of meeting the right people in the right places. I met a guy who was a probate judge and had been a probate judge for 30 years. And he turned me on to the work that he was involved in. And that got me in the probate court arena, where you learn very quickly that there's a lot of needy people who are living in our communities who are falling through the cracks because they have needs that can't be readily met by the service systems that are out there. They need willing and qualified people to step in and help them to make decisions, help them to navigate the very complex waters of the entitlement programs and the service systems that are out there. And that was my introduction to this world. I never had any background with it whatsoever until then.
Did you grow up in Connecticut?
I did. I grew up in Connecticut, went up to upstate New York for college, and then back to Connecticut for law school. And that's where I settled. My whole life is based around there.
So how did you decide to go to law school? Did you have a passion for the law? What was
No,
it?
no. If you remember being in college, and a lot of college, of course, is a blur, right? But no, when I was in college, the economy was just doing really poorly. I was an English major and a writing minor. And I was having a conversation with my father one time. He said, "What are you going to do?" He comes from a long line of educators. And I don't think he wanted to see me go into that field. And as I said, the economy was not in a good place. And he said, "Why don't you consider law school?" So I did. I applied and got into a couple places. And that's how it happened. There's no great insight, no big passion on my part. That's the path that opened up and I followed it.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't think I really ever had a passion for the law until I was a prosecutor for my first few years out of school. And I had interned in 93 with the local state attorney's office. And that's when I really developed a passion for being in the courtroom. But I think my first 2 years of law school, I was like, well, what's the point? I had guys in my class, I'd come in at 9 for class. They'd already been there since 8. They were looking for the latest case. I'm like, who cares about the latest case? I just want to
I
get through the class and pass.
yeah. Yeah, and then
That was me.
third year of law school is a complete waste of time. All you're doing is giving money to the bar association or to the university at that point. But yeah, I felt the same way. I'm not one of these guys that can quote statutes and case law and all this other stuff verbatim. Never was. Hate the dog and pony show of it all. No, and honestly, I didn't really start enjoying the practice of law until I really wasn't practicing law anymore. Until I branched out, formed this nonprofit, and started doing this work. And I could then see the impact that the education and the macro picture can come in, and you could really apply your knowledge, your cachet, whatever you want to call it, to a lot of different things that can help other people. That's when I really got the juices flowing with it.
So, did you actually practice in the probate arena for a couple of years before you said, okay, I haven't, this is something else that's come up?
Yeah, probate, real estate, personal injury. I ran the whole gamut and started trying to, like I said, real estate closings. And no wonder I didn't like it, right? Having worked for all those years in probate from 1995 until about the year 2000, I seeing the cracks of the systems that people were falling through and seeing the lack of cohesion and the overabundance of bureaucracy, I just said, there's got to be a better way. And I came up with this treatment idea, a treatment modality in my head. I brought it to a guy that was one of my mentors at the time. He was one of the leading probate judges in the state. And he thought I had a great idea. And he said, go ahead and run with it. And that was this idea of care coordination, which we call the Guardian model, and we've copyrighted it and all that. But this was back in 2000, where the idea of care coordination, I would give speeches back then, and people had no idea what I was talking about. They had no idea how law intersected with social work, intersected with clinical care, and how all these things really made an impact on people that were actually living in our communities, especially the folks that have mental illnesses, their families, and the entire care structure that's based around them. From there, little did I know that he was in discussions with the Department of Mental Health because he was really concerned with the recidivistic nature of people going into the psychiatric units, getting discharged prematurely, back out into the community with little to no services or the same crummy services that they had before, and going right back into the hospital. So he was seeing people in his courts multiple times a year, like sometimes twice a month, who were living in the communities. And the Department of Mental Health had recognized this as well. So the two of them were putting their heads together, and along comes this poor country lawyer, me, with this idea. And just right place at the right time. They gave me the go ahead to roll it out, and I paid for it. Roll it out as long as you pay for it. I paid for it and piloted the program, and I've been doing this program ever since we officially rolled out.
Okay, so when you say you rolled out, what exactly did you roll out?
Basically, we put together the steering committee that started working in September of 2001. That included the judge of probate, the medical director of the Department of Mental Health, a couple of other lawyers from the community, people that were in forensic psychiatry, and a lot of people that were involved on the administrative side of the Department of Mental Health, so that they could basically, we want to have a bunch of different disciplines that would come in and share their anxieties with how the current service system was working. So the idea basically came out of that from my original Guardian model. It's more or less, it's a care coordination model where we act as an independent third party. We are not the Department of Mental Health. We are not the probate court. We are not the conservator or guardian. We're not a family member. We're going to come in and ally ourselves with the individual with the mental illness and figure out what their goals are, what their dreams are, where they want to be, and also figure out what that big giant team of people around them looks like. And frankly, from there, our main role is to enhance and facilitate communication between all of the players in that team. Most importantly, being obviously our mutual client. We start with what their goals are. We structure a plan around their goals and the realities of the systems. And then we monitor, report, and coordinate on a continuous basis, just constantly like a satellite going around and around the entire service system and service structure that any one person may have in place. And that is the Guardian model in a nutshell. If you think about the spokes of a wheel, all the spokes could be the various players, the various team members. The center of the wheel is the individual, and we are the satellite that goes around. We are the tire that circles the whole thing constantly. Real information in real time, shared good information as opposed to garbage in, garbage out. And the results have just been miraculous. It's been a fantastic program. We've won accolades all over the country. But more importantly, the impact, the work of helping these folks and their families, and we've reached thousands of people. It's been wonderful.
Are these families that are coming to you as a private client, or is this something that's going through the court system and the court brings you in as a third party? How does that work? Because for us, we're getting approached by families on a private basis. Occasionally, we might do a pro bono thing. We did one for the city of Delray, which is local to us, and that brought us in as a third party for the court. But as a general, we work with private clients. So how does that compare to what you're doing, Mike?
First of all, our funding comes from the Department of Mental Health and Probate Court Administration. So we have two different programs. This is where I'm going with this. So those folks are referred to us via the probate court judge who sees these cases that are in front of him regularly and says something needs to get done because this is just not working, or the clinical director or director of the mental health network who sees the tough cases that they have and says, we really need help to coordinate this better and to a credit to both sides, right? They're both looking at it saying, we could be doing better by this particular individual. Let's bring in an outside party to more or less keep us all in check and make sure that we're all doing our jobs. And that's a crass way to say it, but make sure that there's fidelity to the treatment plan that we all agree upon. We do that, and we have a set number of spaces in that program based strictly upon budgeting. When you're in the mental health systems or any of these systems of care, if you are, let's say, on the lower income spectrum, you qualify for the Department of Mental Health, let's say. And typically, your Department of Mental Health has a whole bunch of resources that are out there. They just need to be tapped into. But getting into the Department of Mental Health can be very difficult. So there's that. Conversely, if you are more affluent and you have insurance, obviously you're paying for the insurance so you can get in, but the resources are much more limited. So we very quickly said there is a major space in between for the rest of us that are living in the middle here. And we've created the conservative care program to address, like you said, those private clients who can come to us and say, we want the best of both worlds. We want your care coordination, and we want to have you come in and act as a case manager, so to speak, and to help us help our family and our loved one to get into the services that they need. So we've attacked it on both sides of the fee schedule, so to speak.
Okay, so it might be just like a family that we would work with. And I
Yeah,
say, we have this entity here that over there, they can help to put all the pieces because obviously we're not clinicians, we're not providing clinical
right.
services. I might refer them to a treatment center, but I'm going to say, look, we are providing legal services and we have the statutes here in Florida that allow us to put somebody into treatment and keep them there. And that's a whole other conversation.
Yep.
The magic happens when the clinical services meet the legal services for us. That's when the real work gets done because sometimes you're dealing with somebody who, because of the nature of their disease, cannot make the decision to even save themselves. They're in complete denial. So
Agreed.
somebody has to make that decision for them. And if you don't want the court making it for you or the state, then sometimes somebody like you comes along and says, hey, I have another option here.
Agreed. And I've done a lot of work with the National Guardianship Association down in Florida, their branch, and some of those guys that run that oversight program, really good guys. But yeah, that's exactly where we come in and we say, yes. So one of the team members that I described is your lawyer. One of your team members is your clinician, your psychiatrist. The Department of Social Services, your for your Medicaid, Medicare, and other entitlements, right? Social Security could be in there. The police, unfortunately, can be in there along with jails and stuff. Probation, your independent center, and on we go. So, yeah, it's really great when legal can meet with clinical. And then the thing that we take to the next level is pushing on both of those systems. So I am a lawyer. I know how to walk that walk. My partners at the nonprofit are both MSW, LCSWs. So they are really well versed in the resources that are available. They're also obviously really well versed in a lot of the clinical aspects of whatever the issue may be so that they can talk that talk. And we really push people to think outside the box, right? None of these situations are linear. There is no boilerplate or cookie cutter result that will fix the problems for individuals that are caught up in these systems. We really try to encourage the department that has so many resources to bring in as many of those resources, take a comprehensive approach to the treatment of all the clients. So it goes beyond law, it goes beyond clinical. You know how hard it is sometimes just to find a bed for an individual to live in. So it does combine a lot of the different disciplines that are out there.
So when a private client comes to you, where are most of these people coming from? Because for us, ironically, even though we're in Florida, I would say that 95% of our clients who are usually parents are not in Florida. They're somewhere else in the country, certainly your area, far west. It just depends. I mean, they're coming to Florida for a myriad of reasons. So what kind of folks are you working with, Mike?
It would be the parents. Now, because I've expanded out my reach, and we'll talk about that in a second, we are getting calls from all over the country, and we are getting people interested in the work that we're doing from all over the country, and frankly, globally. It's pretty wild. But our clients usually come to us because they are in a panic state and somebody refers them to us through one of these other channels, through the courts or through the Department of Mental Health or through a program that we've worked with a lot in the past. We've been studied by a couple of different universities, and we've had impact that has trickled up into Massachusetts and things. So people have the idea of what we do and they pass our name along to people from all over. But it is typically the parents who are saying, I'm at my wit's end, or I know you probably heard this one. I need to make sure that things are put into place so that when I'm gone, they're taken care of. Those are the folks that are reaching out to us primarily. But sometimes it's the agencies themselves too, the leaders of these agencies that are just reaching out and saying, help me brainstorm this for a little bit. And we're happy to do that. We do it all the time.
Okay, so a family comes to you. What are the kinds of cases that you see?
Oh man. Some horrific situations, some not so horrific situations. I know you do a lot with addiction. I have current clients that are just so addicted to any and every substance that they can get their hands on that it's heartbreaking, and it really gives pause to the overarching ethical decision or dilemma of, are we helping this person or are we just prolonging their agony? And I don't know the answer to that. So everything from addiction to, I've never seen this before. This is the first time my son or daughter has manifested, let's say, schizophrenia, right? Typical onset is 18 to 25. So you have a family that's chugging along, and all of a sudden, one of the kids in the family starts manifesting this illness, and they've never seen it before. They don't know what to do. And it's heartbreaking when they don't understand right off the clip that this is something that's not just going to go away. So every kind of illness, one of the most difficult types to deal with are the young adults who are the personality disorders. Those are very difficult. But everything from schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar disorder, you name it, it runs the gamut. Really does.
Wow. Yeah. You're seeing some of the kinds of cases that we're seeing too. And I'm wondering, for us, there were two things that really changed the dynamics of what we do. One was COVID and the lockdown, but I think the big shift for us from, say, primary substance use to primary mental illness was the legalization of marijuana. We're seeing a lot of mental health cases fueled by the use of marijuana, specifically psychosis and some schizoaffective disorders, a lot of paranoia, a lot of delusions. We're seeing a lot of that.
Yeah, interestingly, there was a study done. this goes back a long way, probably 15, almost 20 years by, of all places, the Australian Army did a study. It wasn't a very big study, so the number wasn't really good to be statistically significant, I think. So it got blown off. But way back then, they had identified a link between pot and schizophrenia. And I don't know how I came across that study, but that's been in the back of my mind ever since because, again, I am not a doctor or a clinician, but to me, it seems that while I don't know that pot is causing the schizophrenia, I think that there's a chemical that if you have a propensity towards it, there's a door that's locked. And the pot or the THC or the CBD will get in there and unlock that door. And that creates a flood of symptoms and things like this. And I think that's probably, although I don't know that it's been studied yet, but I'm eager to see it when it does happen, the cause of an uptick in that. I don't know if you have any insight into that, but that's just my perspective.
Yeah, I can't tell you that I can confirm or deny what you've just said, but it certainly makes sense.
Yeah.
On those more difficult, challenging cases clinically, we will bring in a clinician because finding the right facility to place somebody is key and critical.
Yep.
When I first started doing this work 10 years ago, there was plenty of facilities here in South Florida that could handle a substance use case and a co-occurring mental illness. As a general rule now, we only work with a handful of facilities anyway, but they have to be able to handle and be licensed for primary mental illness. Otherwise, they just don't have the clinical resources to deal with some of these people.
One of the things I find in that regard is that, and this really is maddening to me, we have clients that are really struggling with addiction, no question about it. But they're also really struggling with a mental illness. And I understand from a medical perspective that when a person comes to you and they are claiming, whether they are or they're not, they're claiming that they're in withdrawal, right? Which is very dangerous. Withdrawal can be a killer. So if they present at the hospital and they say that they're in withdrawal, the hospital has to go through certain protocols to make sure that they don't die. But I think from there, we have to do a better job as advocates, legal and otherwise. I think we have to do a better job of identifying the mental illness that may be co-occurring or comorbid and it's a chicken or the egg kind of a thing. We wind up focusing so much time and energy on treating that addiction that we don't, and to me, that's scratching the surface. To me, the addiction is a symptom of the illness. I believe this. And we really need to focus more time on the mental illness. So I'm happy to hear that your facilities have that underlying approach because I wholeheartedly believe that is where we need to focus first. First, you have to get the person stabilized. Then you could focus on the mental illness underlying. Hugely important. And I think it's overlooked in a lot of places.
Yeah, so is there a legal component sometimes to the work that you're doing?
Oh, there's always a legal component to it. Every client that we have is conserved, which in Florida would mean under guardianship, right?
So somebody is filing for guardianship. Who is the petitioner in that guardianship filing?
Usually it comes from the family. If
Got it.
not, it would come from the hospital sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes it would be the, rarely, but one of the social service agencies from the state may file because they see the need so desperately. But it's usually an interested party. It's usually a family member. And hopefully some of these folks are lucky enough to have somebody out there that would push it up to that level.
Are they filing in Connecticut? Where are those cases getting filed?
Yeah, all of our cases are in Connecticut. All the cases that we work with with the state funding program. And then there's other cases that we've worked with on the outside of
The
Connecticut where
private clients.
they've already been filed. They're working with the probate court or they already have guardianship or conservatorship of their loved one.
I know that you said you're getting calls from different parts of the country, like we are. And for us, sometimes somebody is coming to Florida or they're here in Florida, and we use, I don't know if you're familiar with the Marchman Act, but we might use Marchman and guardianship in the same case. And we're filing down here, and then obviously at some point they want to go back to their home state and they get to domesticate. Or
Yes.
they come into Florida with a foreign judgment, a guardianship from another state, and we domesticate down here. So there's a problem. We can run to a Florida judge. So we're doing our work here in Florida, but people come here for a couple of reasons. One, we have great treatment, and two, we have the statutory framework where we can get somebody into treatment and keep them here long enough and make sure they take their meds and mom and dad have access to medical records and we can control finances and stop them from leaving and all that fun stuff.
I think that the mom and dad having access to the records, which is huge, because there's nobody that's going to be a better reporter and a better team participant than family. And you were talking about COVID and how you shifted your focus. My focus almost completely shifted during COVID too, back to the family caregiver, back to making sure we teach the family caregiver how to be a good advocate for themselves and their family and the other people in that family, as well as the loved one that is struggling with the mental illness. And so my goal in the last 6, 7 years has been create resources, create education, get groups together to help people to become that. Because let's face it, we can't, as a society, we're failing to provide those systems. And you mentioned a couple of the laws and the way that things are looked at down in Florida. It's very different in the Northeast. It's very different everywhere you go across the country. It's different. We don't have mechanisms in place that keep people hospitalized. In fact, it's the opposite. We have mechanisms in place that call and scream for discharge. And one of the roles that I've taken on is to fight against premature discharge. So it depends greatly, obviously, on the location, the overall, I'd say, attitude toward folks with mental illness and the approach that has been adopted in the culture of that particular society community. So you have to be malleable. You've got to be able to work within that framework. So I don't focus necessarily on any one state. I just take a best practices approach when I'm talking to clients and families, that here's the best way to go about this. This should work in any state and under any circumstance.
It's interesting you say that because sometimes one of the reasons that people that come into Florida is, for instance, we had a case where a mom had filed for guardianship in Hawaii. So they got the guardianship, and then there was like, okay, now what do we do with it? So we brought the son, the adult son, into Florida for treatment, and we domesticated the guardianship. So we get that. We also get people saying, in my state, if you go to try to file for guardianship over somebody who has a behavioral health issue, the judge looks at you like you've got three heads and says, "What the hell are you doing here? Goodbye." Now they have to get them to Florida so that we can file down here, because obviously you can still file even though they're a resident somewhere else because we have jurisdiction over them because they're physically here. So sometimes that happens. And again, there are parts of Florida that frankly are just not as switched on as other parts, right? And so that might be, we might file, say, a Marchman Act in South Florida, but if I'm in Central or Northern Florida, I may only file for guardianship because there's no ability to get somebody assessed and stabilized, and I can't get an assessment done, and the judges are like, okay, what do I do with this case? So it does matter where you are.
Everything up in the Northeast is small, right? Connecticut's a small place. Rhode Island's a small place. Florida's a big place. And you're right, that was my experience too. I did 6 or 8 different talks all around Florida. I started up in Tampa, went all the way down and around and back up the other side. I did a little mini tour of Florida a few years ago. And you're right, it's almost everybody has their own little fiefdoms, but it's like that everywhere you go across the country. And people's attitudes are different. People's bigotry toward mental health and mental health issues obviously is different everywhere you go. And the approach, therefore, has to be different.
Yeah. One of the things that I have come across, and it's become a bit of a mission of mine, is helping the legal profession. They say that the legal profession, if you are a lawyer, you are twice as likely to develop a substance use disorder as opposed to somebody who's not a lawyer. But we have put a couple of lawyers in treatment. I've had lawyers as clients. I've had a couple of judges as clients. Are you seeing anything like that from your end? Are you seeing anything in the legal profession?
Just in talking to people that I know, that surprised the hell out of me, that the dark holes that they've gone down because of the pressures of the legal occupation, but also combined with the pressures at home and everything like that. And I don't know what statistics numbers would look like in terms of the white collar professions being more apt to be in those situations. So to answer your question, no, because the people that I work with, for the most part, are, at least in my nonprofit, right? In the nonprofit, we're working with 10% of the population that takes 90% of the resources. Conversely, in terms of the outreach that I'm trying to do and the sort of coalition that I'm trying to form, that runs the gamut of every type of family. I haven't really specifically looked at the white collar as particularly lawyers. No. I have a lot of friends and I think they're all one step away, but that's just because we're all lawyers and you got to be off to stick with this.
Yeah, I've done quite a few CLEs, and every time I do one, I'll say to the group, and it could just be a few people on Zoom, or it could be 50 people at a bar, luncheon, and I'll say, if you're a lawyer and you're dealing with an issue, number one, you can call the bar confidentially, and the bar will bend over to help you. Obviously, if you touch the trust account, they don't care what you're dealing with, you're disbarred for sure.
But touching a trust account could be the result of having the addiction, the gambling
Yeah.
addiction, the cocaine addiction that has to, they got to get the money from somewhere. So you're right. That's the first thing that popped into my head as you were saying that. The bar does not want to have bad apples, right? People have a 50-50 opinion of lawyers anyway. You either love us or you hate us. There's no sort of in between. I apologize every time I introduce myself. I'm a lawyer, don't hold it against me. A lot of times you get the wrong foot out anyway. And the bar certainly wants to help. I believe that. I believe that there's really good people out there that want to help the lawyers to help themselves. So that's encouraging to me that you're doing that work. Kudos to
Yeah.
you.
And our profession is definitely not immune. So, with the time we have left, what does the future look like? Because it sounds like to me that you could roll this out in so many places and help a lot more people, but you'd need a lot of people to help you to do that. You'd need a big team.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I have been since 2001 when I started the steering committee talks, in 2002 when we originally formally rolled out the program. I have always said that this is a program that can and should be replicated. Our model is unique and it's got really great characteristics. There's a couple of things in it that can be tweaked like anything. But what I've done and what I'm really hoping will really grow is I started something I call the Care Coalition. And you can go to carecoalition.org and check it out and join for free. Basically, it's like-minded individuals like you and I who have this passion or at least this interest in what we're talking about. It's a place where people can get together and know that they've got friends and allies in this spectrum, and I want to build it to the point where we can collectively have a voice to effectuate some kind of change. And I think it would be great if we could have more of a uniform approach that would combine this side of mental health we see in the Northeast and this side as we see in South Florida, as you said, and have a real best practices approach. We have resources that are available through Facebook groups and through the coalition and through the journal that I've created and the podcast that we do. I just want to get the word out there. I want to educate more people and I want to get this movement of interested parties who say, yeah, I'm going to raise my hand. I want to be part of this. And someday I want to impact and I want to effectuate real change in legislature and advise people what they don't know. People don't know what they don't know at this point. So that's the first step of all of this, really. And it's unfortunate, but that's really where we're still at in this society, in this American society. This is our last real closeted societal issue, if you will.
I think it could well be the number one challenge we'll face as a society. I really do.
If we don't face it already, it will be very soon. I agree.
Yeah. So listen, Mike, I really appreciate, I love the work that you're doing. I know I want to continue to chat with you, and I appreciate you coming on the podcast. And for the folks that are watching this, if you want to learn more about what we do, the website is mentalhealthaddictionlawfirm.com. That's mentalhealthaddictionlawfirm.com. And thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.